What a great first witness for the defense. It's very strategic, and Brennan let his real colors show. Day 24 of Karen Read's trial started off on Friday, and it started off with a bang. Hi, my name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. As I was suspecting, the defense did make a motion for a directed verdict. However, as I also expected, Judge Cannoni denied it. So the defense started their case, and they called their first witness, which was Matt Disogra, who's an accident reconstruction expert with Delta V. Jackson did the direct examination, and obviously we started off getting what he does. We got his background, how he's an expert, all of those good things. He specializes in analysis, interpretation, and accessing vehicle data through all the vehicle systems. He analyzed the data that was gained from Aperture through Burgess and Welter, and he basically said the reason he had to look at Welter's was because it was also based on Burgess's. Disogra did an amazing job breaking down this data and making it able to retain and to understand much better than Burgess or Welter ever did. He said that the system grabs the 5 seconds before the event and the 5 seconds after the event, making this a 10-second event, which right in the middle would be the trigger event. And he pointed out that Aperture's timing and calculations essentially went off the end of the trigger event versus the trigger event itself. And this would cause a 5-second differential in all of their calculations. There was a sidebar. He was asked to point out the difference between Burgess's January 30th PowerPoint and his May 8th report. He pointed out that Burgess never went through the final steps of the calculations that he needed to do to get actual adjustment for them. Basically, he just pointed out how elementary and wrong the Aperture reports and calculations were. Then another sidebar was called, and just so you know, during his entire testimony, there were tons of objections that were sustained and tons of sidebars during direct. Are you at all shocked to hear that? Disogra said that it's very unlikely that the phone and the vehicle clocks would be aligned because they're separate clocks. Disogra said that in the amended reports, there's a key timing adjustment of 3 seconds that came from the exemplar Lexus that Aperture bought. Said that there would need to be additional testing done to see if that 3 seconds also applies to Karen's SUV or if it was just that SUV specific. He said that the 3 seconds were noted in the report but were not applied in Aperture's analysis, and that if they did do it, would change John's interaction window. They went through a lot of the testing that Burgess did, and Disogra basically came out and said that they were just cherry picking these certain events to hopefully make them align with what they wanted them to. Everything that Disogra did was based off of Aperture's reports and testing, exemplar, all of that. It's all from Aperture. Said that Karen's SUV data didn't show any signs of collision on January 29th, and that the ACM didn't have any recorded events. Then there was the morning recess. Then Brennan came up on cross, which I have been waiting to see how he does cross-examination, but boy was he heated about this expert's testimony. He had Disogra confirm that he's not saying that Karen's SUV was never in a collision. However, he's saying that it was not logged in any of her data. During the first part of this cross-examination, there was lots of objections by the defense, which of course Judge Cannoni overruled, shockingly. Brennan had him confirm that he's not an expert in mobile forensics, and he's like, no, I'm not, and I've never said that. Brennan had him confirm over and over, essentially, that he did not download his own data, he did not get his own data or do his own testing. I really don't know why Brennan thought that this was a good look for him, because the answer essentially every time was, no, I didn't. I'm using the reports, the testing, everything of the exact data that Aperture had, aka your experts. There was lots of technical questions, which I think Disogra did a great job of breaking down for us to be able to understand, the non-experts. There was a lunch break. After lunch, Brennan starts in again, asking him that his opinions only come from the reports that he read, not from doing his own testing. Again, look at this as peer review. He was peer reviewing Welter's and Burgess's report. Remember, Welter said, oh, we couldn't do that. I couldn't release it. Well, guess what? The defense did. They had an expert come in and do a peer review, and you were totally wrong. He said that Aperture's analysis was unique and that he's never seen the approach that Aperture had taken in this case. Brennan is clearly frustrated, and he's just not looking good during this cross. Because basically during this entire cross-examination, Brennan is trying to discredit this expert, not realizing that he's making his experts look even worse, because all this expert can testify to is the information in the testing that his experts did. Jackson came up for a redirect, and he hit the Commonwealth pretty hard where it hurts, because he essentially was like, have you ever lied about your credentials? Have you ever lied about your education? Of course, that's going to stick with the jury. He also had him confirm that he created the amended report after Burgess created his amended report. Hello, he's testifying off Burgess's report, so he's got to update his stuff. He was asked a very specific question about his timing, and if whether the timing was off, whether his analysis would change, which he responded it would, because it would make the finding of the phone interaction after the end of the vehicle event. Confirmed that all of his analysis was done based on Aperture reports, data, and PowerPoints. On recross, Brennan tries again to hit this expert, and he just can't because he had him confirm that he doesn't know what testing was done. Disogra was basically like, no, I don't. But if it was done, it wasn't put in a report anywhere. Hello, that means it wasn't done. He also said that there was certain information and testing hit he would need done for him to make better analysis on other events. And of course, Aperture didn't do those testings, so he can't give a more firm answer on them. He essentially made it clear that Aperture did a bang-up job in this investigation and in their testings, and they should have done way more testing. Brennan thinks that he got Disogra good when he essentially said that if any of the data was wrong in there, that Disogra's analysis would then be wrong. Disogra was like, yeah, because my analysis is only as good as the information I have. So if it's wrong, or if whatever, then my analysis would also be wrong. Hello? That his analysis is only as good as the information he receives. Also, shockingly enough, after listening to this expert testify, Brennan this entire time has never once tried to say that John's phone moved after the collision. He's always kind of kept it like, nope, it ended right then and there, right? And then today, during this testimony, it seems that Brennan is confirming that John's phone did move after the event that they say is where he got hit. And the jury was sent home, and the lawyers and Judge Cannoni stayed for a little bit of voir dire. The defense wanted to voir dire Jonathan Diamandis. He's a good friend of Proctor, and obviously was on this text chain that Proctor was in. The defense wants to have him testify as to the messages he received between him and Proctor. You know, the bad ones. Judge Cannoni is going to give her ruling on Monday morning of whether those text messages can come in through this witness or not. And that was it for the day. So that wraps up day 24 in the end of week 6 of Karen Read's trial. I think that this was a very strategic and a good witness to have called first for the defense because it tied right into the witness they just ended on with the Commonwealth. It made it easier to go together and to compare the two. Day 25 and week 7 will start off on Monday. As always, I thank you for being here. I thank you for following along, and thank you for being patient with me when things come a little bit later than they maybe should. Here's the question of the day. How do you think that this first witness testified for the defense? Was it a good call or was it not? Let me know in the comments.